We begin here. 39,000 formal sector jobs were created in South Africa in the second quarter of 2023. That's according to Stats SA, which released the quarterly employment statistics today. The increases in employment were recorded in the business, services, mining, manufacturing and electricity sectors. The decreases were in manufacturing, transport, trade and construction. Total employment increased by 104,000 year-on-year between June 2022 and June 2023. Full-time employment decreased by 25,000 jobs. Mining, manufacturing and community have returned to pre-pandemic employment levels. All right, now let's discuss this further. We're now joined by teams by Owen Nkomo, CEO at Inkunzi Investments. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon, sir. So 21,000 job losses in the first quarter of 2023 between January to March 2023. Just talk to us about the significance of the latest figures, and secondly, the sectors that were the drivers in the increase in employment.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Ms. Patashe. The statistic is obviously not an impressive one. Anytime when people lose jobs, you know that a lot of people are going to suffer, because the multiplier effect of every single job in South Africa in terms of how many people are supported by that job is north of 6 people in South Africa. So any job losses that we're counting here, we need to realize that about 6 people might get affected by that loss of the jobs. And we would like ideally to have a scenario where we've got more growth, especially in the sectors like manufacturing, agriculture, and the long-term sort of stuff that we need to grow the economy. And unfortunately, these numbers just reflect that the economy is really still under a lot of pressure post COVID. Yes, there's recoveries that we're starting to register, but unemployment remains a world-leading indicator coming out of South Africa. That is one thing that we proudly and sadly actually own. You would wish that maybe the economy is creating not over 100 to 200,000 jobs per quarter in order to deal with the unemployment. But let's remember that this is actually all merit to the growth in the economy. So if we're not driving the economy to grow, it will definitely be difficult for us to see more significant improvement in the job market.
So in actual fact, what you are saying is that 39,000 formal sector job increase, jobs that were created in this quarter, particularly in the second quarter, is not really that impressive, especially when you see that full-time employment decreased by 25,000 jobs. Perhaps just talk to us about the differences here, where we are talking about 39,000 formal sector jobs that were created and full-time employment decreased by 25,000.
Yeah, so the difference obviously between the informal sector and the formal sectors, in the formal sector you get a pay slip, you are on a payroll, you get the benefits and all those other things. But in the informal sector, it's the small mom and pop shops, people that are doing their own businesses on the side of the street, people that are working from home and don't have the luxuries that you get from the formal sector. So that is the difference. And then full-time employment is obviously if you've been employed for a long time and you're on a permanent contract, you therefore have a full-time job. You're not in a part-time basis. You don't have a short-term contract. So when you start to see that number come down as well, it's a reflection that most employers and entrepreneurs are under a lot of pressure. So this is why you will end up seeing the decline in the formal employment sector. And I think guys are just trying to rationalize their payrolls and make sure that they only keep the most essential employees, given the difficult economic environment that we're operating under.
So the sectors that we are speaking to are the business service, the mining, manufacturing and electricity sectors, where the increases were then recorded. So how significant then is the growth in the electricity sector, just considering that South Africa is battling crippling rolling blackouts with no immediate end in sight at the moment?
Yes, there is some pockets there's some pockets of improvement in these areas, and let's also remember that when we talk about an increase in one industry, we need to look backwards and say where is it coming from. This sector is obviously there was lots of retrenchments that happened, but I think that the numbers that you're seeing now are starting to incorporate even the players that are in alternative energy, renewable energy, and ESCOM also has been putting numbers up as well. I've been reading stuff about how people are being rehired back to work at ESCOM as full-time employees. So as we try to ramp up the supply of electricity in the country, as the private sector is trying to ramp up supply of alternative energy in the country, you obviously need to employ people. And I think lots of budgets that you will see today are focused on making sure that there's an increase in the numbers of employees that work in this space, so that we can, at least for all the projects that are going on out there, the live projects, there is people employed in the space. And I do think that this trend will continue until we start getting to an optimal level in terms of energy supply and in terms of the optimal mix of private and government supplied electricity.
Now, when we talk about, just some sectors that have shown improvement, we're talking about mining and the manufacturing sector, and these have shown, improvement pre-pandemic times. When will we start seeing some of those results across the board, do you think?
Unfortunately, we've had to hit a reset button as the economy. Budgets are being allocated to certain sectors, and some sectors might never recover post-COVID. But I think that we just need to, and this is something that I say all the time about the economy, if our economy could kick on all cylinders across the sectors, you will find that employment is starting to get created in tourism, manufacturing, agriculture, and all these other sectors, property, training, and financial services, which has been doing relatively well, as a sector in terms of contributing to the growth of the economy. I think the economy needs to kick on all cylinders, but unfortunately, the backdrop of the economy, the backdrop of our politics, the backdrop of the perception of South Africa from overseas investors, especially given the limited supply of electricity, doesn't ultimately excite investors to come in and put money across all the sectors in the country. So people are going to be very selective about where they invest, and they're going to obviously be very selective about where their returns are going to come in at the lowest risk. So we've seen a lot of money coming into the motor vehicle manufacture industry. We have a very big manufacturing industry for motor vehicles, and I do think that it's important to take that into cognizance in terms of understanding where money is going. Sectors like that get foreign support will always do well. BMW, Ford, Mercedes-Benz, Toyota, they invest billions of dollars in the country to make sure that they can continue to produce, because their products are not necessarily consumed locally, they are exported as well. So those are sectors that are going to continue to see some capital support.
Mr. Nkomo, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I really do appreciate it. That's Owen Nkomo, CEO at Inkunzi Investment, of course, talking to us there about 39,000 formal sector jobs were created in South Africa in the second quarter of 2023.